Greetings, math fans. All right, so this is day 7, and if you remember past day, we graphed problems like this. Y is equal to 2 to the x minus 3 plus 4, right? And this was an exponential graph. So today we're going to graph problems like this. Y is equal to log base 2 of x plus 3. Okay, so problems similar to that, and this is a log graph, right? So the deal is, we're really going to convert that log graph into an exponential, and then you're just going to graph an exponential. It's a little bit different. You got a couple other little crazy things going on here, but that's basically the gist of this whole thing. You got to convert it into an exponential, because if you asked me, if you saw me on the street and said, hey, Mr. Carvers, how do you graph this log graph? Y equals log base 2 of x plus 3, I'd be like, I really don't know. And I would actually have to convert it to an exponential, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now I can graph it. All right? So that's basically what we're doing today. So let us start out with a really basic problem here, and we're going to have asymptotes, but everything's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so let's graph the first one. Y is equal to log base 2 of x. Okay? So what you're going to do is, maybe you're not clear with converting it into an exponential because it's written in a weird way, but if I wrote this log base 2 of x equals y. So you guys, do you agree I just literally just swapped the two locations just so you can recognize it? It's just an easier way to read it. And I asked you to write this as an exponential. Well, you have your a, b's, and c's, and you should be able to know how to do that. And you should say, oh, 2 to the y power equals x. So 2 to the y power equals x. Okay? So for these problems, you are going to solve after you convert it. So after you convert it, you're going to solve for x. Before you solve for y, now you're going to solve for x. So in this case here, we just have x equals 2 to the y power. Okay? So a lot of the stuff is now similar, but here's the deal. Remember, we talked about this before, about a number after it. So this number after it, again, is going to be our asymptote. We don't have any numbers here now. We'll do a problem like that a little bit later. So this is going to be our asymptote, but instead of y equals, this is super important. It's going to be x equals. So basically, this is going to be a vertical line. Okay, so vertical line. So the line's going to go up and down instead of a horizontal line. Okay, so it's going to be x equals that number. And then what we're going to do is, it's the same thing as before. We're going to take this value and we're going to set it equal to 0. And then you're going to solve, in this case, solve for y. And you're going to pick two numbers lower than it and two numbers higher than it. Okay, and then you're going to basically, it's a little bit different because when you make a t-chart, math fans, you're used to picking values of x. Just think about it. You're picking values of y. So you're going to pick those values of y, and then you're going to plug in your calculator just like you did before to get the values of x. Okay, and then you're going to graph it, and that's it. Okay, so I got a lot of stuff here. So let's just do the basic one. So let me erase this all again. Okay, so I'm going to say y is equal to log base 2 of x. So y equals log base 2 of x. So we already did this, so let me just say it's 2 to the y power equals x, so x equals 2 to the y. So remember what I told you, we're doing a log problem, but truly we're doing an exponential because I already converted to an exponential. Okay, and remember there's no number after it, so in this case here it's x, I'm going to put this in bold green, x equals, and since there's a 0 here, x equals 0. Okay, so that is my asymptote. It's x equals 0. Okay, now we're going to pick values, so that y, we're going to set the y equal to 0. Now there's nothing to solve, so when I make my t-chart, I'm going to pick values of y now. So 0 is my middle point. I'm going to pick -1, -2, and 1 and 2. And I'm going to plug it back into, of course, we're using this equation, right? We're using the new one, not the log one. Don't do the log one. That would be, you'd cry. Okay? So anyway, I plug in the values of y. So 2 to the negative 2 power is 0.25. 2 to the negative 1 is 0.5. 2 to the 0 is 1. 2 to the first is 2. And 2 to the second is 4. Okay. Let's go ahead and graph it. So my y values are going to be negative 1 and negative 2 and 1 and 2. And x is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to go up to 4. Okay, so I graph 0.25, negative 2. Oh, you know what? What should I do really first here, guys? I need to draw in the asymptote. It makes it a lot easier. So x equals 0. Remember, it's a vertical line. So that means it's never going to cross that line. Okay. So 0.5, negative 1, right here. 1 comma 0, 2 comma 1, and 4 comma 2. So what this graph is going to look like is this. It's going to hug that asymptote. That's what log graphs actually look like. Okay, that's it. So, and remember, an exponential graph looked like this. So let me draw that in red. This is what an exponential graph looked like. Okay, because you always had an asymptote here. Now the asymptote is the green guy, right? This is your asymptote right here, and it won't cross that. So that's why that graph looks like this. Okay. All right, so that's reasonable. So let's do a little crazier one. Y is equal to log base 2 of x plus 3. Okay, so again, if you need to write it this way, log base 2 of x plus 3 equals y, and then if it helps you now to write as an exponential, 2 to the y equals x plus 3. So 2 to the y equals x plus 3. Okay, and what I say to do, you got to solve for x, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So I'm going to put the x on this side, not on the left. So x equals 2 to the y minus 3. Okay, so you got to solve for x. Very, very, very important. Okay, so we got our asymptote guys here, right? It's going to be x equals negative 3. That's our asymptote. And the nice thing about this guy right here is that y equals 0, so our middle point is 0. So if you make a t-chart, x and y, so again, we're going to pick a 0, 1, 2, and negative 1, negative 2. And then we're going to plug values in. Again, use your calculator. Okay, that's what you guys should be doing for all these problems. So we're going to do 2 to the negative 2 is 0.25. 0.25 minus 3 is negative 2.75. So negative 2.75. Put a negative 1 in there. 2 to negative 1 is 0.5. 0.5 minus 3 is negative 2.5. I put a 0 in there. 2 to the 0 is 1. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Put a 1 in there. 2 to the first power is 2. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. And put a 2 in there. 2 squared is 4. Minus 3 is 1. Okay, there you go. Remember, this is our asymptote. Don't forget that. That's really probably the first thing we're going to graph here. So let me put a couple marks on here first. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 1, or 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Okay, so x equals negative 3 is my asymptote, so let's put that in there. Negative 3. Okay, cool. And let's start plotting some points. Negative 2.75, negative 2. Just be approximate. You're good to go. Negative 2.5, negative 1. Negative 2, 0. Negative 1, 1. And 1, 1 comma 2. So 1 comma 2. Okay, so that's it, guys. Not bad at all. So here's the graph. Okay, pretty reasonable. Okay, let's do another one here. The one that gives us a different value to pick for center point. So y, and then we'll do one combo. Okay, y is equal to negative 2 plus log base 2 of x. Okay, so in order to put this in exponential, guys, you got to solve for log base 2 of x, right? So I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and then I'm going to write it as log base 2 of x equals y plus 2. Okay, now I'm going to write it as an exponential. So remember, 2 to the y plus 2 equals x. So 2 to the y plus 2 equals x. So x equals 2 to the y plus 2. Okay, so notice here, asymptote is going to be x equals 0, because it's a 0 here, right? Plus, like saying plus 0. Okay, so let's find out that middle point. That's y plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 from both sides, so y equals negative 2. So when I make my t-chart, I'm picking negative 2 as my middle point. I'm going to pick negative 3 and negative 4 and negative 1 and 0. Okay, so let's put these values in. If I put negative 4 in there, I get negative 4. Again, you're putting it all in your calculator, all with parentheses, just like I've showed you before. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. 2 to the negative 2 is negative, or is point, let me erase this, 0.25. There we go, 0.25. Okay, 2 to the negative 3 plus 2, so 2 to the negative 1 is 0.5. 2 to the negative 2 plus 2, so 2 to the 0 is 1. I put the negative 1 in there, I get 2. I put the 0 in there, I get 4. Okay, so y is negative 1, 2, 3, 4. And x is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, math fans, is we're going to draw the asymptote, and that happens to be at x equals 0. Cool. Okay, let's plot some points. 0.25, negative 4. 0.5, negative 3. 1, negative 2. 2, negative 1. And 4, comma 0. Sweet! Okay, that's it. Okay, it doesn't cross that blue line. That's your asymptote. Okay? So let's try, actually before I do a combo, let's do one with negative, because I think it's kind of important. So if I said y is equal to log base 2 of negative x. Right, so I'm going to write this as log base 2 of negative x equals y. So then remember, as an exponential, 2 to the y equals negative x. So 2 to the y equals negative x. So I need to solve for x. Always solve for x. Okay, so I basically just divide everything by negative 1. So you get x is equal to negative 2 to the y. Okay? So do you guys agree that I have nothing here? So my asymptote is going to be x equals 0. Sweet. And then I set this equal to 0. So y equals 0, which is just means I have 0 as my middle point. 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2. Okay, so let's plug it in. It's negative, so there's no parentheses here. You don't see any parentheses. It's negative 2 to the y power. Okay, so basically in your calculator, you're going to type in negative 2 raised to the, and put that in parentheses, whatever that is. Okay, so if I put a negative 2 in there, I get negative 0.25. If I put a negative 1 in there, I get negative 0.5. If I put a 0 in there, I get negative 1. If I put a 1 in there, remember it's 2 to the 1, which is 2, but then negative of it. So again, if you use your calculator, you're good to go. And this last one is negative 4. Okay, so we get, so let's draw on our asymptote first. It's always important. X equals 0. Okay, and let's put some tick marks on here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's plot some points. So negative 0.25, negative 2. So negative 0.25, negative 2. Negative 0.5, negative 1. Negative 1, 0. I need to put a couple points above here. So we got negative 1, 0, negative 2, 1, and negative 4. Okay, we'll put one more tick mark here. Negative 4, comma 2. All right. So this one looks like this. This is what the negative does. It just moves to the other side, right? Like this. Remember, a positive one looked like this. That's all it did. Just switched it around. Okay, but just if you put it in your calculator, you get the right points. It's easy. Okay, last one I want to do is a nice combo. It's got everything in it. It's got asymptotes, and it's got where the center is not red 0. So we got y is equal to 3 plus log base 2 of x minus 1. Okay, cool. So in order to write as an exponential, I'm going to move that 3 over. Always have to solve for the log first. So I subtract 3 from both sides. So you get log base 2 of x minus 1 is equal to y minus 3. Okay, and then remember, as an exponential, it's 2 to the y minus 3 equals x minus 1. So 2 to the y minus 3 equals x minus 1. And then you want to solve for x. So there's a lot of solving. Like this one, you had to solve for the log before you can put it into exponential, and now you got to solve for x. So if I do that, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So you get x is equal to 2 to the y minus 3 plus 1. Okay, that's it solved. So what do we have here, math fans? Okay, this, of course, is our asymptote, and that's x equals 1. And then you want to find the middle point, so it's that y minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 to both sides, y is equal to 3. That's the middle point. So if I make a t-chart, I'm going to pick 3 as my middle point, and then I'm going to pick 2 and 1, and 4 and 5. Of course, this is our x and this is our y. So now we're finding values of x. Be careful, type it all in your calculator. You should have 2 raised to the, and like for the first one, it should be 1 minus 3, close parenthesis, plus 1. If you don't close a parenthesis, it's just going to add 1 to it, and it's going to be completely wrong. Got to close a parenthesis. Okay, so that's going to be 2, basically 2 to the negative 2, which is 0.25, plus 1 is 1.25. Okay, if I put a 2 in there, 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 2 to the negative 1 is 1/2, or 0.5. 0.5 plus 1 is 1.5. Okay, I put a 3 in there. That's 2 to the 0 is 1, plus 1 is 2. I put a 4 in there. 4 minus 3 is 1. 2 to the first is 2, plus 1 is 3. And I put a 5 in there. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 squared is 4, plus 1 is 5. And those are your points. Okay, so just so I can kind of fit everything in here, you're going to have a nice grid all by yourself with your note, with your homework. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, your asymptote is x equals 1. There you go. There's your asymptote. Okay, let's plot some points. 1.25, comma 1. 1.5, comma 2. 2, comma 3. 3, comma 4. And 5, comma 5. Okay, and so your graph looks like this. Sweet. Okay, so that's it. It's a little bit of work, but you know, again, you got your note sheet, guys. Write down some good stuff in your note sheet and make sure you guys know what you're doing for the quiz and the test. All right? That's it, math fans. Have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.